One of the reasons why my progress has been moving at something of a slower pace really comes down to just not knowing my subject all that well. This is both in the fictional sense of just not knowing my character quite as well as I want to yet, not understanding their entire motivation or what's pushing them. That's certainly part of it. And the other side of it, though, is not having a good foundation to understand their life. And what I mean by that is good writing comes from being concrete with your language. You have to be able to research and know your subject very, very well. The worst type of writing is vague writing. This is why, and I feel like I've talked about this before, but this is why stories about like past trauma or tragedy and all that stuff ends up connecting so well with an audience. And it's because since one's experienced these things firsthand, they can get right into the specifics of everything, not just their emotions at the time, but just they can set a scene really, really well. They can draw on their experience and quite literally just go, okay, this fictional house is going to be exactly like the house I grew up in. I'm going to have the same dysfunctional parental dynamic. I'm going to say my fictional characters are going to say, the same things I was told. I'm going to have these same scenarios that happened to me play out in the story here. And it's amazing because they're drawing on personal experience so they can get into the nitty-gritty details. And that's what makes writing strong. That is the key to really, really good writing, is strong language. It's the vague stuff, the vague kind of writing that is weak. And that's often when you look at your work and you think it's terrible. There's a good chance that the reason why your writing perhaps is not that good is because you're too vague. You're not being concrete or specific with the details. And this, unfortunately, requires you to know your subject really, really well. And that's why, for a writer, research is one of the most important things you can do. And for me right now, I'm in a situation where this person's experience is obviously based upon a real person that I know. Now, they could write the story probably maybe a little bit better than me in some respects because they can get into like the really specific details that I have to kind of research and fill in. They could just off the top of their head know this kind of stuff, as opposed to me who's got to basically figure this stuff out as I go along here. And it's been a challenge to research it. It's been a challenge to get in there and really get these kind of finer details. Fortunately, some of the stuff is kind of universal. The experience can be, of a lot of people, tends to be universal. And so you can just substitute maybe your own personal experience for this character in some ways, and you can pull it off well. An example is in this chapter right here. It deals with the main character and his sister basically are downsizing or helping their mother downsize. So their mother is now a widow. I won't go too much more into that. It doesn't play a big factor in the story at all. But basically they have to go and help her clean out the place. They're helping her downsize, and there's a whole bunch of fighting about the downsizing. There's a lot of emotions and sentimentality tied to the objects they're getting rid of. And so in this scene, I have to kind of evoke that. And it's one of those things where I have seen this be done before. I have witnessed my grandparents passing, and I've witnessed my parents and my aunt and uncles have to go through and kind of clear out their old house. And so I know what it's like to pack away stuff. I know the feeling of sentimentality. I know the frustration with having to do this over what to keep, what to get rid of, etc. I've witnessed that enough that I can tie that pretty well to this chapter. And yet, there's something I'm missing. And this is part of why I'm going very slow, is I got to figure out the few minor feelings, that those few minor details of emotion at the time, to really bring this home. And so I guess what I'm saying here is, if you're a writer, research, really get into the research of your projects, really get into that. It's super important. And being able to take minor situations, like I said, like cleaning out a house, and being able to turn that into a story is so key. And being able to do that with the most mundane of things, because it's those mundane things that you go through day to day that you have such a good knowledge of. It's just that it's so mundane, we don't cling to it. We don't really think about it. We don't store it that well in our memory banks. And it's only when you have to recall it later that you have to kind of fight to go, okay, what was I talking about? What was I discussing here at this time? And you try and make this thing work. And so I'm going to wrap it up here with that. We are moving along, and again, the story's picked up a little bit. The past, this session here was pretty darn good. It's picked up a little bit. As I always say, writing comes in kind of sprints here. I actually thought I'd be in the muck a little bit longer than I was, but I've kind of, again, much like my prior chapter situation, I've kind of gotten out of this muck a little bit earlier than I thought, just because, I'm sort of plowing ahead here through it. And so with that, I'll sign off here, and I will see you tomorrow.